Jai Baba, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today on the Zoom and everyone who would be listening to this recording later. I'm so grateful to each one of you to come here and to share space and being a part of this Lord Meher book reading, which is nearly going to be 2 years now on 21st of June. And I'm really excited. So, continuing with last week's reading, we had love. The thing is that every time we read from the book, we have such lovely messages coming through. Like Baba is sending us the message, and that's exactly what we need to hear. So I hope that you all also gain not only learn more about his life, but also get certain messages, and we can imbibe that in our daily lives, which is amazing to come through him through this. So I will continue with the reading, and we'll read. We'll each take turns. We'll be in silence while one person will be reading, and after an hour and a half, maybe we can chat a little bit, or if anybody has anything that they would like to discuss, you're welcome. And yeah, so we were reading about film projects and work in India. It was later revealed that there was much disagreement and discord among the Iyengar family, mainly between Sampath and his daughter. Ironically, Baba did not accept any celebration that day, but he did accept their dissensions. He made the whole family sit before him and urged them to air their grievances among themselves in his presence. He heard the father's side, then the children's. Afterward, he prevailed upon them to live in harmony and brought them together in such a way that amity and love once again prevailed in the family. Sampath and his family said to Baba, "We have received the highest boon on your birthday today and have had the chance of tasting the nectar of your love. We are deeply grateful to you." As a gesture of their gratitude, they beseeched Baba to have both lunch and dinner with them, to which he consented. While Meher Baba was visiting the Iyengar family in Bangalore, a strange and wonderful event took place in Ahmednagar. The very same day, Adi Senior and Padri had had come to Ahmednagar from Mehrabad to purchase supplies, after which they visited Kushru quarters. Adi saw his mother Gulmai and Padri, and he and Padri were about to leave for Mehrabad when an unexpected car drove into the compound and stopped at the entrance of the bungalow. Padri shouted in amazement, "It's a Pasni Maharaj!" Alighting from the car, Maharaj entered the room at Kushru quarters that was already kept unoccupied for him. Gulmai had kept his gaddi and gunny sacks in that room, which Maharaj had used at Sarosh Manzil, and a small seat for Baba on which Baba's photograph had been placed. Maharaj then sent away his secretary, B.T. Wagh, who had come with him from Sakori on some errand in the city. Upasni Maharaj's usual custom was to occupy his gadi and allow people to bow down to him, but this time he stood before Meher Baba's photograph and began uttering a prayer. Adi had unlaced his shoes and silently entered the room to take Maharaj's darshan. But when he saw Maharaj praying before Meher Baba's photograph, he was stunned. He thought, the master is praying before the photograph of his disciple with folded hands? How wonderful! For 5 minutes, Upasni Maharaj stood praying motionlessly straight into the eyes of Baba's photograph. Then, turning to Adi, he said, "I like this place very much. I like this photo of Mervan still more. I love Mervan. He is great. He is matchless, unique. I bow down to him. Let me pray in his presence. Convey my salutations to him." Next page. Adi was profoundly affected by this incident. Amazed, he kept thinking, what extraordinary love it is when the master worships his disciple. Maharaj then told Gulmai, bring me the tray and lamp. I wish to perform Merwan's arti today. Gulmai, tell Merwan that I came here on his birthday and I prayed in front of his picture and performed his arti. Gulmai immediately uh, brought the necessary items, and Maharaj began doing arti, chanting mantras as he was waved the arti tray in his hand before Baba's photograph. At the completion of the arti, Maharaj brought the tray to his forehead and then put it down. Uh, the sight of Upasni Maharaj worshipping Meher Baba deeply touched Adi Padri and Gulmai. Tears welled up in Gulmai's eyes as she watched this. Maharaj had come. Uh, Sorry, there's somebody trying to reach me for this call. Can Marvin, can you continue so I can help the person there? Thanks.
Okay. After the Mandali in Mysore were informed of Upasni Maharaj's visit and what he had said, they understood why Baba had forbidden any celebration on his birthday. As Age explains, what the Sadguru does, he does for the whole universe. Through the body and mind of Upasni Maharaj, the whole universe worshiped Meher Baba on his birthday. The ocean expressed its love for the embodiment of the ocean. Were all the drops in the whole of creation to offer worship to the ocean, it could not compare with this type of worship done with the love of a perfect master for the avatar. And that's probably Gulma, yes. Early the following morning, Baba left Bangalore by train for Ahmednagar and Nasik, accompanied only by Jalbai. As instructed, Chanji was driven to Mysore by Tukaram. Baba met Gulmai and Ahmednagar, and afterward Ali Sr. drove Baba and Jalbai to Nasik, where Baba met Rustam and Frani. Since Baba had not taken Frani with him to live with the women Mandali in Mysore, she was feeling upset at being kept apart. Baba loved her and had to journey hundreds of miles from Bangalore, especially for her stability. Frani was touched by his concern and became calm. Baba lovingly paid attention to her children, Melu, Falu, Meru, Nagu, and Beram. Baba also saw Naval Talati's family and Ramju's relatives and attended to their individual problems. After a brief visit, Ali Sr. drove Baba and Jalbai to Bombay, where they stayed at the home of Naroji Dadachanji for a day. They went to see a film at the Edward Theater in Kalbadevi titled Public Hero Number One. Ali Jr. and Behram went with them. While they were in Bombay, a Mr. M. Chakravarti Iyengar from Mysore came to see Baba at the Dadachanji's, but Baba was not there at the time. The man left a letter asking for Baba's guidance, which Baba answered. After the one-day visit, Baba and Jalbai returned to Mysore by train on the night of 23rd February. Ali Sr. returned to Meherabad. Jalbai reported a peculiar encounter on their way back. At Sholapur, a Mohammedan sadhu entered their compartment and began making peculiar gestures. He instructed Baba to lie down. Baba complied, and the sadhu also laid down and was quiet for a few minutes. The fakir was to have gotten off the train at midnight at Shahabad, but he remained in their compartment until the morning, and then got off somewhere near Guntako. Jalbai learned that the sadhu was well known in the area and traveled constantly by train in all classes, getting on and off undisturbed by the railway officials. During Baba's stay at Mysore, he had instructed the Mandali that his current address should not be divulged because people would come to see him or write to him, and this would disturb his work. On 24 February 1936, Baba asked Bhagarat, "Have you given this address to anyone?" Bhagarat denied doing so. Baba again asked him, and he again denied it. Baba motioned to bring his coat, and when Baba's coat was brought, he took out a letter addressed to Bhagarat that had been forwarded from Ahmednagar. The letter was sealed, and Baba opened it in the presence of all and pointed out a passage where Mysore was mentioned. It was obvious that Bhagirath had mentioned Mysore to this person in a prior letter. Bhagirath was forced to admit his mistake, and Baba forgave him. For some months, Baba had been planning on calling his closest Western lovers to India for a long stay. He was in search of a suitable place in Mysore where the Eastern and Western men and women could live together and remain undisturbed. On the afternoon of Thursday, 27 February, he visited the town of Uti with Gustaji and Jalbai for this purpose. After having a look at Kunur and a few other places, Baba returned to Mysore on the evening of March 1st, indicating Uti is a very good place for the Westerners to stay, but we will decide definitely about it later on. For many years, Baba had wanted to buy the Meherbai property from Adi and Rustam's father, Khan Saheb, which was still registered in his name. Baba had offered rupees 5,000, but Khan Saheb would not sell. In February 1936, Adi unexpectedly sent Baba a telegram stating that his father intended to transfer the property to Meher Baba's name. Baba cabled back on the 16th. Happy father giving land. Transfer it soon. On 4th March, a letter from Adi was received stating that his father had transferred the property. On the deed, Khan Saheb had actually written, "I hereby transfer this property out of my love for Meher Baba." The gift deed was executed on the 7th. After the letter was read, Baba remarked, "There was a time when I offered to buy the property from him for rupees 5,000, but he refused. Now he has given it to me gratis. How and why did it happen? It happened due to the power of love. Love is unique and makes the impossible possible." Baba began taking food only once a day from Friday, 6 March, and his seclusion became stricter. For a brief outing, he visited the Krishna Raja Sagar Dam with the men Mandali on the evening of the 7th and went again the next evening with the women. Mr. Chakravarti Iyengar, the man who wanted to see Baba in Bombay but missed him, came to Bala Bungalow for darshan on 9 March. Baba permitted him to see him for 1 minute from the adjoining room. After he had Baba's darshan, Chanji talked with him and found out he was an influential person. Chakravarti assured Chanji he would secure a better place for Baba's ashram after conferring with the Maharaja of Mysore and his Diwan, chief minister, Sir Misra M. Ismail. During this period, the letters from Baba's Western lovers often asked how to meditate and what to meditate on. To help them, Baba had a chart prepared for meditation. On 10 March 1936, he explained, "They must think, I am not this body." The chart will help them meditate, and they will escape from the rush of thoughts that crowd their minds during meditation. Baba was having stomach problems and was driven by Jalbai to Bangalore on the 12th, where he had a dentist appointment the next day. Chanji accompanied them. On the drive back, Baba noticed 5 poor boys playing near a hut on the road. He had the car stopped and gave each an orange. The boys were delighted and hailed Baba in their native language. Newspaper reports began appearing about the possibility of war erupting between Germany and France. On 14 March, Baba commented, "It is definite that a war will break out in which the whole world will be involved, but it would be better were it not to start just now." He added, "The instant war begins, my work will also begin." Since Baba was observing a more strict seclusion, He had not written to the Westerners for some time, but on 16 March 1936 he sent this letter. My beloved selves, it has, it has been a long silence, silence that has been a severe test for you all, dearest, as I alone know. But it has its great purpose served, and I am so glad. This silence in its long spell taught you a great lesson, the lesson to suffer. Very keenly at times, I know. But if that suffering has made you think of your beloved all the more, it has brought you closer in love. I am delighted. I know it has. And am not only delighted, but happy for so much of your work done, for so much of the progress made. It was during this period of your suffering that we enjoyed each other's company the most through inner communication, for I listened with no small delight to the throbs and music of hearts that wished to convey their voice and message to me at all times.
Marvin, the word is communion, I think. I didn't see communication.
You're right, through inner communion. Similar type of meaning, but you're right. Two different ones in America and Europe, Baba wrote. If you only knew how silence speaks more than words, you would welcome such a silence 100 times more than spoken or written words. For it is during such periods of prolonged silence that hearts united in love, such as yours for your beloved, are drawn closer, the inner communion held more frequently. And it was during this silence that I felt the heart throbs stronger and deeper, longing for the love that is to be ultimately yours. Baba clears the way for you, dearests, and walks in front. Won't you, beloveds, follow? And whilst you thus follow him on this path of life, light, and love, won't you keep your faces smiling and feel happy and cheerful? For you are moving with me in an onward march toward the life where I know eternal peace and ineffable bliss awaits you. Explaining his current seclusion to the Backets and those in England on 16 March, he wrote, and although I had been in seclusion, seeing none, I worked all the while through you, my dear son and dear Mary, and my other loved ones who could and did convey my love and blessings to those who needed and desired at that end, while I worked internally, so that my dear ones could serve as beautiful channels for me to work with and participate in my great work. You both dears, Mary and yourself, played no small part in that. I alone know how faithfully, how lovingly, and how wonderfully you carry on my work that makes me ever so happy. Faith alone works wonders, but faith combined with the devotion and love such as yours and Mary works not only wonders, but real substantial service to the needy and seekers. And no wonder they all see and feel the wonderful effect of Baba through his dear ones like you, who work so wholeheartedly for Baba. And even though I do not many a times reply by letters to the questions asked in letters, I do reply to these in silence, at times through those like you who work for me, so that there is always a link internally and externally. During the seclusion period, especially, my work is more internal than external. And this is one of the reasons why I keep practically away and out of touch from the world of phenomena, attending only to those items of my work which are most important and cannot be managed without my personal advice or guidance. And although I do know how keenly all my dear ones feel for this silence and seclusion combined, missing my physical presence and touch to which they are accustomed, the consideration and importance of the work necessitate such a condition as I alone know. But even though the external contact is thus practically cut off for reasons, internal communion continues more than usual, bringing the loved ones still closer. I have already explained this in my general letter for the dear ones of the group, and you, dear Will, understand and feel things so well that I need not dwell on this any more. All the questions of my dear ones and others in need of help or guidance, conveyed through their letters, or through reports in your letters, or through inner communion, have come to me, and I have replied to these as I deemed best, mostly without resorting to external means of communications, being myself in seclusion. And this process will continue till the seclusion period ends.
Thank you, Marvin. Prakashji, would you like to read from here? Thank you.
And if replies per letters are not given, it should mean the voice of loving, suffering hearts hasn't reached me. The inner voice is the surest means of communication and never fails to reach me. But the response, whether prompt or slow, depends on the sweet will of the master and should never give any grounds for disappointment to a soul if its voice is not promptly responded to. I don't think I read that right. But the response, whether prompt or slow, depends on the sweet will of the master and should never give any grounds for disappointment to a soul if its voice is not promptly responded to. In that silence, too, there is a meaning and reason, as the master alone knows. He sees far, far ahead and works not for immediately satisfying results, but for the ultimate aim and good of the dear one who has come to him seeking aid and guidance. You may therefore explain and convey to all the dear ones about whom you have written in your several letters to me in those few words that Baba knows all and listens to the voice of each loving heart that seeks his aid and guidance and conveys his loving help to each in his own way, looking always to the ultimate good. None should worry, for Baba is always with you. And as I have already told you in my general letter, while I am in seclusion, I am working in silence for the ultimate good of all my dear ones and for the upliftment of humanity, and have been planning things for the future work in which many of my Western dear ones have to participate. And to that end, I may in the near future come to the West to offer at the same time an opportunity to the loved ones to meet me. It is not definitely settled, but you will be informed when the definite plans are made. I know how anxious you all are, having not met beloved Baba for over a year, but perhaps we shall now meet soon, my dears. Baba reiterated this theme on 28th March of 1936 to Nani and Rano. I have your letters, and although I didn't reply by letter, you did have the reply through inner communion, which always continues, whether I am, wherever I am, whatever I may be doing. No call of love ever remains unresponded, much less from those who love me and think of me constantly as you do. Remember, dearest, Baba watches every little act of love, listens to every little note, voice of love, and responds to every little cry given for love, no matter where these come from. The fountain source of love is ever pouring forth, directing its course into different channels wherever needed. And for those of my dearest who love me as you do, its course is ever open to pour out any moment, anywhere. Baba emphasized the same point again a few months later in another letter to the Westerners dated 5th July of 1936. Although written replies are not regularly sent, I read all the letters and convey my help and blessings with the help needed. Internally, sorry, again, let me read that. Although written replies are not regularly sent, I read all the letters and combine my help and blessings with the help needed internally. Let them never despair who write to me and not receive written replies. The very fact of writing to me, nay, the first thought of writing to me establishes a contact, and that always works as and when necessary to convey the help required. They all dwell in Baba's thoughts, in whose hearts Baba dwells. Words and explanations are unnecessary where one actually feels. During March of 1936, the question of whether to establish an ashram in Mysore was being seriously discussed between Baba and the Mandali. However, Baba expressed that the people of Mysore were far too traditionally religious minded. Since they were so entangled in Orthodox religiosity, he explained it would be difficult to free them of their narrow-minded prejudices so his ashram could operate in an uncontested atmosphere. On 15th March, Baba remarked, I like this place, Mysore, but here my movements will be restricted. I cannot move about independently because of such persons, and I do not like that. The time is past when I could dismantle the whole ashram within 8 days, as I did in Toka. It was quite a different phase of my work altogether then. Here it is different. I now wish to prepare a definite plan so that there may not be any difficulties in the future. For that, the sword must be in hand, whereby I can beard the lion in its own den. Meaning, of course, that I may be able to do my work here among all this orthodoxy. All these zealots should be sent to the front of the battlefield. A scoundrel is better than these people, for he at least appears as he is. People can recognize him and take precautions to stay away from him. But those orthodox persons are a hidden danger to people. They're devils in the guise of saints. Holy moly. Lazy, good-for-nothing loafers are often frank and bold by nature, are prepared for any eventuality and are not afraid to die. But these zealots are cowardly, hypocritical posers. Therefore, these zealots are more dangerous. They are like black sheep wearing the clothes of a sadhu.
Thank you, Prakash ji.
Yeah.
Rosalie, can you read next, please?
Baba returned to Bangalore with Jalbai and Chanji, Tukaram driving, to see the dentist on the 18th. Whenever Baba went to Bangalore, he would stop at the town of Kangari and drink water from a well near the railway station, famous for its medicinal properties. He went to the Anand Bhavan Lodge, but finding it unsuitable, tiny rooms, bedbugs, smelly communal toilet, they moved to the similarly named Shastri Anand Bhavan, where they had stayed on a previous visit. In the evening, Baba took a walk around the public Maidan commons. Baba went to the dentist the next morning and was fitted for a set of dentures or new bridges. That evening, they went to a film, Accent on Youth, at the new Imperial Talkies. On the 20th, on the way back, Baba stopped and purchased cookies to distribute to some poor children who flocked around him. Before returning to Mysore, they crossed the bridge and visited Srirangapatnam Island in the Kaveri River. where Baba saw the ruins of Tipu Sultan's fortress and other monuments. On Saturday, 21st March, when MEHER received news of his brother's demise, he wept. Baba consoled him and said, "This life, body and death are all Maya, and to weep over the death of someone is ignorance. Remember, Maya does not mean this world and its affairs. The illusion that this world and everything in it is real, and of feeling happy or unhappy over certain conditions is Maya. See how Maya charms and deceives humans, and how she entwines herself around them. Daily thousands die. Recently in America, many died due to floods. In the war in Abyssinia, Ethiopia, so many were killed." Footnote. When Ramchu's 14-year-old son, Bagu, saw the horrific photographs of the Italian campaign in Abyssinia, published in the Illustrated Weekly of India, he asked Baba how long the war would go on. Baba spelled on the board, "It will not stop," which Bagu understood to mean that humanity was in store for more suffering before it turned towards God. That's from Mehrabad, the Hill of Celestial. The earthquake in Quetta alone killed 30,000 people. But though these thousands and thousands perished, you did not feel upset for them. Those thousands of men, women, and children who were healthy and strong, who were expected to live a long life and had various hopes, plans, and ambitions. Compared to them, your brother was old, unfit, and suffering much. And for him, your tears are useless. He is free from his suffering. You should be glad. In mid-March 1936, Baba began suffering from stomach pains and was in much discomfort. Chuggan, who knew some Ayurvedic treatments, gave Baba a metal ring to wear. But the next day, when his finger became swollen, Baba removed it. Others too were not well. Mani's mastoid became infected, and on 23rd March, she was admitted to the Holsworth Memorial Mission Hospital at Mandi Mahala, where she was operated on 3 days later by an English surgeon named Dr. Robinson. Naja, who was doing the cooking in Mysore, was appointed to be by Mani's side in the hospital. So Khorshid took over the cooking duty. But she too came down with fever. Walu also fell ill. And it seemed that one difficulty after another began plaguing them. Mera remained healthy and was occupied with Baba's personal needs. And Indu helped in the kitchen. Nevertheless, things were unsettled in the bungalow due to all these complications. Among the men, Chuggan, whose duty was to keep night watch near Baba, also became indisposed. Another problem was that some local ruffians began throwing rocks at the bungalow during the night, and then cut holes in the bamboo matting surrounding the house to see what was going on inside. Footnote: the bamboo matting served as a fence for the women's privacy. Before all the illness struck, Sunamasi had been keeping watch outside the bungalow during the day. But since she was appointed to cook for Mani, there was no one to take her place. Since none of the men Mandali was allowed to go to the women's side, Baba himself began keeping watch. And when Sunamasi was done cooking, she would relieve him. It is all Mysorean Maya, Baba stated, working with all its might, creating complications on all sides. Baba went to see Mani at the hospital 2 or 3 times a day, carrying soup or some other liquid for her. He would send Chanji constantly to the doctor to make certain Mani was treated well. The nurses at the all-woman facility were greatly drawn to Baba, even though his identity was not disclosed. On 28 March 1936, Baba commented, "A thing in which I cannot put my mind has to be worked out by external means. As Vivekananda has said, the true teacher is one who comes down to the level of his student. I have to come down to the level of the external, gross world, work, feel, and suffer as you ordinary human beings do. For instance, in the case of Mani, I cannot apply my mind. So I work through all external means, feel and suffer as an ordinary being. Maya always works in opposition, and her force is greatest where I cannot put my mind. It is all so complicated, for it is delusion. And delusion is full of complications. In truth, reality, there is no complication. It is one indivisible whole. Need is a great factor. Even for a master where they cannot apply their mind, there is a need for certain things. They have to come down to the level of ordinary human beings and do things which puzzle all. For instance, Dr. Robinson, I want you all to run after him, myself going with you and feeling so anxious for you to see him, explain things and get his reply, etc. Why? Because there is need. We need him for Mani's case to be better soon. And since it is entrusted in his hands as the best expert, we have to run after him. Otherwise, under ordinary circumstances, if we had no need, I wouldn't have seen him even if he came and requested an interview. I like Mysore for certain external reasons too. Climate, water, and above all, because I feel aloof from the petty worries that disturb me over there. Meherabad, Nasik, and Bombay. And with the Dewan's positive reply, as it is given, it would have been so splendid. But since Mani's serious illness and operation, it is so discouraging. And then the Tata cutting affair totally disappointed me. On Friday, 3rd April 1936, Baba took a drive to Najangud with Gustaji, Jalbai, Chuggan, and Chanji, and saw the exquisite carvings on the famous 9-story temple there. Thousands of pilgrims had come that day and were approaching the temple after bathing in a nearby river. On the 7th, Baba spoke about sleep. The number of hours one sleeps is acquired by habit. It is not a, quotes, necessity, end quotes. In fact, sleep is a state of unconsciousness, and all beings spiritually are unconscious until full, real consciousness is gained in self-realization. This state of unconsciousness during sleep is really nothing but a state of inaction and rest for the body, which, forming into a regular habit, has grown to be considered a, quotes, necessity, end quote. There are men who have very little sleep, men of culture and science, who are devoted to their work in which they are so deeply absorbed and busy that they hardly have time to rest, much less for sleep, which they take for hardly a couple of hours a day. There are many who are accustomed to having very little sleep, and yet they keep in the best of health. The general complaint.
Thank you, Rosalie. Betty, if you're around, can you continue from here? Okay. Maybe Mahu can read next.
Okay. So this is year 1936, page 1710. The general complaint, therefore, that one's health is spoiled for want of sleep has no value of grounds. It is only a matter of habit formed since childhood. In India and the East, generally, night is considered as the time for rest and sleep. Most people in the East go to sleep early at night and rise early in the morning. The case is quite the reverse in the West, where people have more life, quote unquote, life at night than during the day. They sleep at late hours, mostly after midnight, after dinner parties, dances, cinema, opera, and other entertainments are over, and rise very late in the morning, even having their breakfast in bed. They start work after 11 a.m. when practically half of the day's work is finished by people in the East. This change in the hours of sleep and activities, etc., are all formed by force of habit. It would not be surprising if people, through their regular habit, learn to be more active and gradually lessen the hours of sleep until they know no more of sleep. Baba seemed to be in a good mood on the afternoon of 10th April. Quote, humming merrily to himself, as he so often does when in a good mood, Chanji recorded. Baba quoted lines from the Persian poet Khusraw on the alphabet board and had Kale Mama repeat them several times. Vishnu was told to chant the lines. Baba explained their meaning and then opened a book of ghazals to a certain poem and told Chagan to read it. Wistfully, Baba noted, quote, he who is so fond of singing devotional songs and who would enjoy doing so 24 hours a day has not gotten to enjoy it for years. Baba mentioned other mystical poets who were realized. Kabir's poetry has a beauty all its own, simple yet deep in meaning, and interesting. Kabir by nature was quiet and mild, while Guru Nanakji, on the contrary, was very hot-tempered. Both were realized, yet so different in temperament. Tukaram also wrote beautiful abhangs. Krishna undoubtedly was the author of the Gita, but he didn't write it down. Then who wrote it? The Mandalis said it was likely handed down orally from father to son for some generations, from those who heard it directly from Krishna. Baba agreed and added that the one who subsequently wrote it out in Sanskrit must certainly have been an advanced soul, because none other than an advanced soul could ever write such a divine masterpiece as the Gita. Page 1711. Regarding the Avesta, Baba further revealed, Zoroaster was an avatar and gave divine messages, but these are not the Avesta, especially as it is known today. Baba continued to visit Mani at the hospital and receive daily reports about her condition. On the 10th, he remarked that Mani's recovery had created a deadlock in his activities, as he wished to leave Mysore but could not until Mani recovered. On 14 April, Baba discussed matters with the Mandali and stated, I am Paramatma, God, and within a fraction of a second, I can do away with all these hardships. Mani is my sister. Could I not make her well? But though she is my sister, I do not apply the power of my mind to her, and similarly for all others, those to me. Therefore, I have to resort to worldly remedies and have to praise others to get my work done. Addressing Chanji, Baba continued, quote, I send you to the doctors often, and you have to pamper them. Chagan's health is now so bad, he wants to rest for 3 months. But at the same time, I know that no one can do his duty. And so I have to pamper him. I have to pamper him. Why this indulgence? Because I need them. Although I am God Almighty, I have certain requirements for my work. Everyone is dependent on somebody else for something, but there is a vast difference, more than between heaven and earth, between your need and mine. Your needs exist out of selfishness, while mine is selfless, devoid of any selfish motive. My work is for the betterment of others, and because it is for others' good, I don't mind even indulging people. Again, quote, because of my duty, which is universal work, I pay attention to Chagan's health and have arranged for his treatment. If I had no duty, I would not have cared even if Chagan had died. My need is a boon for others and a harassment for me. You can see this from the attitude of the doctor. I tolerate him humbly and have also instructed you to be humble. On Thursday, 16 April 1936, Baba continued upon the subject of Mysore and explained, at first, this place offered so many attractions, pleasant weather, beautiful surroundings, comfortable living quarters, especially for the ladies, and we all liked to stay here. Then unexpectedly came money's ear trouble, and all work is left at a standstill. In short, we are literally stuck here. Mysore has become an eyesore, Baba joked, and we all wish to live here as soon as possible. The men asked why he tolerated all the bother, looking after every small detail and therefore putting himself to so much trouble. Baba replied at length, my duty is to take you out of the clutches of Maya. And while I do this, I have to face opposition from Maya, who does not wish me to do it. Why? It is automatic, according to the law of reaction. Maya does not intentionally do it, but it happens automatically. The more I try to release people from her clutches, the more she tries to draw them into her net and create opposition. It is according to the law of resistance and reaction. Maya is like at a bat. Once a bat sticks to your ear, it will not let go easily. It might let go if left alone for hours, if you patiently wait and do not disturb or touch it. But once you try to remove it forcibly, it will hold on all the more tightly. And if you exert a strength to pull the bat off, it will come, but with your ear in its claws. Or you can compare Maya to the lizard, which sticks to the wall. If you try to remove it, it holds on even tighter. This is the law, which cannot be avoided. And what cannot be cured must be endured. That is why all the great saints, masters, and avatars suffer so terribly. The opposition differs in degree according to the nature of the work and duty assigned to the masters. Even Sadgurus such as Sai Baba, Babajan, and Upasni Maharaj do not have as much opposition as I have. It is because their duties are confined to only certain spheres and not as widely universal in aspect as mine. For instance, Sai Baba would drink wine and eat meat, quite oblivious to the impression it would create on others, because his work was not as varied and worldwide as mine. He simply did his work of blessing all who came for his darshan. His field of activity was not as vast as mine, with ashrams, programs, and innumerable schemes. Hence, he did not care who came to him or what impression they would have of his particular action. Yet influential people and men of learning, such as Dixit, G.S. Khaparde, and others came to him and worshipped him. I guess somebody else should read now.
Okay, thanks, Mahu. Jay, read. Okay. Joanna, would you like to read?
Jai Baba, no, not at this moment. Thank you. Jai Baba.
All right, Jai Baba, thank you. Then we have Marilyn next. Marilyn, can you read now?
Yes, Mona. Jai
A
Baba.
little bit louder, please. Thank you.
Okay. It is similar in the case of Upasani Maharaj and Narayan Maharaj. Although they are both perfect themselves, their work is of a Hindu sectarian nature. They are surrounded by Brahmins who strictly observe all rites, rituals, and ceremonies, keeping others out. Upasani Maharaj's indifference to the established rules of society, keeping many young women, brought him a bad name and made his work difficult, creating scandal and trouble. But he did not mind it, not only because he is perfect, hence above and beyond these things, but also because his work is not so extensive and wide as to necessitate the care and caution he should have taken if it were otherwise. My work is universal, hence I have come in contact with all kinds of people of all religions, countries, and creeds in the East as well as in the West. And while working, I have to be very careful to consider the feeling and impression created on all who come in my contact, especially those whom I wish to work for me immediately or later in the future. If I do not do that, no one would come in, if I do not do that, no one would come in, would be induced or persuaded to do the work as I want him or her to do it. In my great universal divine plan, I require men and women of all castes, creeds, cults, and denominations in life, from the poorest peasant to the richest Rockefeller, each to fit in to a particular type of work in his or her class or community. Accordingly, I find the person willingly inclined. Thus with me, there are Hindus, Mohammedans, Parsis, and Christians, Easterners and Westerners, each with certain tendencies, temperaments, inclinations, and fitness or fondness to do a certain type of work. Each has at this time certain weaknesses and prejudices side by side with good qualities. And it is all these things and factors which I have to observe and consider if I want a particular person to fit in somewhere for certain work of mine. Therefore, whenever a person is introduced or comes into my contact, I watch over him closely, and for a certain period in the beginning, even pamper his prejudice of caste, creed, or religion. I tolerate his other weaknesses in nature and temperament until he is gradually trained and prepared to give these up one by one. And then he begins to understand things in a better and broader angle of vision, all the while trained through talks, explanations, discourses, and direct references to others, which are really meant for him. It is a a very delicate and difficult task involving so many problems for a number of persons concerned in a particular question. Consequently, some have to tolerate and suffer unnecessarily for others who are thus being trained. Thus, if a Hindu comes to see me, I have to look at his caste, Brahmin or untouchable, and speak and deal with him accordingly. And similarly, in the case of a Mohammedan and Parsi or a Christian, I explain things as the person likes best, seeing to his or her temperament, inclinations, or prejudices, so that he will digest what I want to impress upon him, and then try to learn to overcome and rise above his prejudices gradually. In this
Thank you. Ralph, can you read next?
Oh, yes. Oh. Oh. Okay. In this whoops. Oh, I lost the text. What happened? Here it comes. Sorry, I don't know what that was about. In this manner, so many have been trained during all these years, so that the Hindus, Mohammedans, Parsis, and Christians in all of the Mandali have learned to live as one family. Their religious and other social prejudices have been practically destroyed, and they are convinced now that all their weaknesses and prejudices were false and unreal, and that real religion is one of universal brotherhood and love for all alike. This they have taught after years of training and careful tactics observed by me, handling each case separately according to the temperament of each. I know and have tactfully brought them all through the path of prejudices and religious orthodoxy and bigotry to an understanding of toleration for all religions and to the true spiritual aim and goal of life, which is my only mission. But if I were to teach these spiritual truths from the beginning, disregarding your human weaknesses and religious or caste prejudices during the preliminary stage of training, none of you would have stayed with me, much less been trained to the discipline and understanding of life as you are now. There are so many different kinds and types of persons with hundreds of varieties of weaknesses and prejudices which I have to deal with and handle tactfully and delicately during the first stages, tolerantly overlooking their many faults, even persuading them in spite of their own mistakes and deliberate wrong actions, thereby suffering myself intensely and at times making others also suffer unnecessarily, for which they again blame me, become annoyed, or upset, then I have the additional task of explaining to them again why I do certain things at certain times. We need some more. Or is that what's happening? Is that a chapter? Wow. Oops. I lost my text again.
It's okay. Thank you,
Baba.
Ralph.
So,
Vijayji, would you like to read next?
Yeah. Film projects and work in India. Thus, there are always complications in such universal work as mine, wherewith there arise so many questions and factors concerning and involving hundreds or thousands of people at one time. Consequently, there is always the chance of my actions, words or explanations being misinterpreted, treated, and misunderstood in one way or the other. In trying to please everybody, one pleases nobody. Yet I have to try to please everybody in turns or on certain occasions simultaneously through different moves, actions, and words as required by for certain persons at certain places. My coming here to Mysore was for a certain object and work, and my activities here are in certain directions which none of you understand. For instance, our neighbor Subramanya Iyer, he is a particular type of person with whom I am required to deal with certain tactics because I want him to help in certain work of mine in the future. Iyer is a pleasant man, well educated, religious, of good character and honest. But he has certain peculiar weaknesses, orthodoxy, which I know and must overlook at first for the sake of my work. In explaining the particular traits of human character found in the East and in the West, Baba said, from my knowledge and experience, there is a marked deficiency and weaknesses in the character of Indians. They have no discrimination as people in the West have. For instance, our neighbor a year again, a person of his type, in spite of his university education and intellectual training, would be prejudiced in an instant toward the slightest cause that he does not understand. Iyer has a certain impression about spiritual masters and saints, and he has formed his impressions accordingly from what has been explained to him by Kali Mama and Chanji, as well as from the books he has been given to read. He is pleased also to have an ashram opened here as planned, and he would willingly help us in his own way. But all this would go on quite all right, only so long as his impression already formed uh, about spiritual masters and saints, and he has formed his impressions accordingly from what has been explained to him by Kale Mama and Chanji, as well as from the books he has been given to read. He is pleased also to have an ashram opened here as planned, and he would willingly help us in his own way. But all this would go on quite all right, only so long as his impression already formed lasts. The moment that impression is prejudiced or lost, all his zeal and enthusiasm to cooperate and help us would be blown to the winds. Such a person's impressions is based on certain ideals he has formed, which must be maintained, and these ideals are very delicate and susceptible to being instantaneously shattered. So in order to maintain that ideal and impression, I have to be careful in dealing with him. That's why I do not want you to hurt his feelings and warn you to be very careful in your talks with him. In a serious case such as the cutting through of the bamboo matting so many times repeatedly from his side of the compound, it clearly shows it is the work of his own servants, or they cooperate with others in this mischief. Following the recent attack at midnight of stone throwing at the Bangla, immediate action is necessary to stop this regular nuisance, which is getting more dangerous every day. It seems very necessary to draw his attention immediately, since he is the proprietor of the Bangla and the head of the family and all, for an investigation and the necessary immediate action to bring the culprits to book before they go further and prove more dangerous. You all advise that, yet I prefer not to bring this to his notice, even though it is so serious and becoming more dangerous every day, causing so much annoyance and trouble to us all. Why do I prefer to keep him out of this and to suffer so much of ourselves? Simply to avoid giving him a shock and keep his mind and operations maintained as it is at present, because I have to work with or through him in the future. I know that the slightest mention of these things, even though they are facts, his mind will at once set to thinking become easily prejudiced, and the impressions created would be totally shattered. He would not discriminate and try to understand the situation in which we are placed in a new area which is quite foreign to us, and we have so many ladies who have been trained under certain strict discipline, and he would never realize that although I am a spiritual master, I have to work in the world of matter with people of the world and have therefore to observe certain ways of the world and work accordingly, which is so difficult. His lines of thought would be in a certain direction with settled ideals of saints and masters, that they are above and beyond things of matter and are therefore untouched and unaffected, etc., etc. So he thinks that they do not mind these worldly difficulties at all, that thieves or robbers would never go to a saint's ashram or a god, or even if they do go, they would not be able to achieve their aim due to the powers of the saint.
Thank you, Vijayji. I think we'll stop the reading here and the recording, and we will have a small chat and discussion for those who would like to. I would like to welcome Meenal from Pune, who I met at Mehrabad, who has joined us today for the first time. Jai Baba Meenal. And
Jai Baba Mona, thank you so much.
yeah, I hope you'll be joining us regularly from now on.
Yes,
and maybe
yes, I will.
And I'd love you to read next time as well.
Yeah,
And
definitely, I will.
Thank you. And it was so nice. I think, I think every time we read, there's some messages that come through for us. Like this time Baba spoke about, like how some of us have not met him in his physical body. And if anybody wants to talk about anything or share anything that touched their hearts, please unmute yourselves and let's have a small discussion or chat if you like. Or whatever, if there's something that you take away from today.
Did we stop the recording, by the way?
I've asked Prakashji to stop the recording because I was logged out, so I can't stop it.